Good morning, everyone. Today is Dr. Cerene Rathilal. She's a lecturer at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Very recently left University of Johannesburg. And she's been actively involved in a number of programs, of which I'm going to mention just one or two. She has a PhD in maths, works in algebra and topology mainly, but is very active in other activities related to future and young mathematicians and so on. She's the founder of STEM MentHER and the director of the Future Mathematicians Programme. And she's a focus area coordinator for algebra and topology. Cerene, welcome to this cold Johannesburg. I know you're going to feel colder because you're from warm KwaZulu-Natal. It's all yours.
Morning, everyone. Firstly, thank you to the CoE-MaSS. Thank you to Professor Abdul Kara and all of the colleagues here. I want to give a warm welcome to everyone who's joined us online, as well as who's here physically. So today I've been tasked to do something that is quite atypical, and that is to provide a seminar in science communication and community engagement, rather than what one would normally do, which is present a research seminar. And so I hope today that what I present is going to be valuable and perhaps lead to creating some good synergies and collaborations on future projects that would emerge. To me, science communication and community engagement is something that could go hand in hand. If you are involved in science communication, then to me, that is already a form of community engagement. So today I'm going to be telling you more about some of the science communication guidelines and hacks that I have learned and acquired over the years. And I'm going to tell you about two programs that we have created, the first of which is STEM MentHER, and the second one, which I'm really excited about, which is the Future Mathematicians Programme. So, science communication, effectively, is about conveying your scientific research and your discoveries to a non-expert audience. It's about ensuring that you do it in a relatable way and that the information that you share is accessible. So when doing this, there's a few key things to keep in mind. The first of which is, who is your audience? Well, firstly, we as mathematics researchers and those who work in the mathematical sciences, we are already science communicators because we deliver content when we teach undergraduate students. So in a way, we've already been doing this. What's different is taking the same content and now delivering it to a different audience. For example, presenting what is a group to university undergraduate students would be done differently if you had to communicate the same definition of a group to high school learners. And that is the key thing that one has to take into consideration: knowing your audience, knowing their background, knowing their knowledge level, and knowing about things or examples that would be effective in your communication to them. So in particular, if we take for an example, explaining the intersection of two sets to undergraduate students, we would perhaps, well, taking into consideration the knowledge level of the student, we would already understand that the student understands what a set is. And so if we had to explain what is the intersection of A and B, I would then directly perhaps say that the intersection of two sets A and B consists of elements that belong to both A and B. But now communicate the same thing to a 7-year-old, and now fundamentally you will observe that a few things have to change. You now have to check, does the student understand what a set is? Well, we now need to communicate what a set is. What can be a set? What can't be a set? Then you would have to ensure that you communicate very effectively using correct terms what intersection is. Maybe you won't use the word intersection. Perhaps you'd have visuals. Perhaps you'll want to use the word of overlap, or trying to change your terms to talk about common objects that belong to each of the sets that you have described. So these are the fundamental things that one has to consider and put into practice when we are communicating effectively to various audiences. Very recently, we had hosted abstract algebra lessons for high school learners. And I had presented one of those lessons with Dr. Sophie Marquez. So when we had planned the session, these were some of the questions that we had to ask ourselves, because we wanted to introduce high school learners to sets, operations of sets, relations, equivalence relations, so forth. And we had to think about, well, what are the common misconceptions that a student can engage with? For example, a student may think that a set could consist of only numbers. And so we had to address that fundamentally in our explanations to show students that a set could be a collection of people. It could be a collection of shapes, and give them illustrations to help get that point across effectively. And those are the types of things that one needs to consider. So that was target audience. And I have already touched on simplification. It's about avoiding jargon. It's about avoiding technical language, understanding the audience's background so that we could, in a sense, provide relevant examples that would connect to them, and information that is accessible to them. And so therefore, when we explain the intersection of sets to students, it is necessary to change over the language of it and adapt it to the level of the audience. Now, human beings love connecting or love hearing good stories. That is why print media, social media, pop media is all very popular and will not die out, right? Because we love getting a good story that we can connect with, understanding what is going on around the world. And if we can do the same thing with our communication in mathematics, then we would be able to connect to a wider audience. So it's all about taking your scientific research, ensuring that you are able to adapt it to the level of the audience, and then creating a narrative that could help connect to your to the group that you are communicating with. So the narrative needs to be impactful. So perhaps sharing your experience when learning the concept, human touch, human connection, and that is what could help bridge a gap if you feel that you've not yet made the connection with the audience. I've also learned that feedback through my journey is extremely important. Whilst I have been communicating to broader audiences beyond the classroom or the lecture room for a few years, I have found that my journey is one where I'm continuously learning on how to evolve and how to build my skills. In particular, I recently delivered a NITEX colloquium at Stellenbosch University. And some of the feedback that I had received through that has helped me grow and understand where I could improve. So I realized that I misunderstood the concept of what a colloquium should truly be. It's about ensuring that what you're presenting is accessible to a wider audience rather than just the scientific research audience that we're typically accustomed to. And now, learning from that feedback, I know that going forward, my colloquiums will be modified to account for that. So it's about ensuring that you are open to constructive criticism from your peers and mentors around you to ensure that your communication can become more effective every single time. So as I mentioned, we are science communicators already, every one of us. It's simply about ensuring that we can now effectively communicate what we do to a different audience. So we're used to communicating effectively to students at university. Can you take the same content and now deliver it to the general public? And would you be able to do that effectively? Well, one could only learn that by ensuring that we get enough practice, starting small, starting with smaller groups. Science communication has various forms. It doesn't necessarily have to be a public lecture. It could be writing an article for the media. It could be writing a book to communicate or to educate the public about what it is you do. So perhaps choosing where you want to start, which may not be that public, but rather a bit more inward with writing an article might be the way to go if you feel that that should be your first step. Now, some of the things that I've learned is to not oversimplify. You need to be transparent about what you're doing, but you need to ensure that you do not what could I say, dilute the facts. It's about ensuring that the facts are communicated effectively and that you do not sensationalize them. Again, embracing storytelling was one of the things that I've learned, as well as visual aids. For example, if I wanted to explain what is topology to high school learners, one thing that I would want to do is to have some putty, Play-Doh. Because with that Play-Doh, I could then show students that by deforming, stretching, shrinking, compacting, that a circle is equivalent to a square. I could also utilize the very famous coffee cup donut. And so it's about finding those things that you know could connect to your audience, that could truly make the difference. But also it's about actively listening. It's about getting the feedback from the audience. So right now, in a sense, because this is also an online presentation, right now it is a bit of a one-way communication, but had this been an active discussion, then I would be able to modify my explanations based on what the audience feedback was during the presentation. So those are my tips on my science communication do's and don'ts. It's about choosing to start somewhere. Science communication, if you do it, is already community engagement. But at the same time, there could be community engagement that does not involve direct science communication. And so that is what I want to touch on briefly. And I'm going to do so by telling you about two projects. The first of which is one that was not inspired by science communication at all. The purpose of me sharing the details of these projects is, number one, getting the information out there, networking, but to also ensure that researchers are aware of it so that they too can participate or get inspired to start something of their own. And that is the goal today. So I'll tell you very briefly about STEM MentHER. STEM MentHER is a program that I had created based on my experiences as a student. So not something that was born out of science communication. This is a program that is there to address gender disparities and inequalities that one finds in society, especially in science. Women in science is scarce and are not equally represented. It's about actively fighting gender norms, gender stereotypes, and it's about showing the girl child that they belong in various spaces and that they too could achieve extreme heights despite historical transgressions that one could have experienced or that has been recorded in history. So this program was piloted in UJ last year, where we had admitted 16 female students. This is aimed at grade 12 students, where we effectively help them bridge this school-university gap. Educators and teachers nominate students, and students are selected and inducted into the program. This year, since it has been piloted, we have expanded the program to Stellenbosch University, the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and it is still active at the University of Johannesburg. This program is, of course, made possible because of other people that partner and help make it possible. The students in the program are paired with academic mentors. So when it was launched in particular at UJ last year, each of the 16 students were paired with academic mentors from UJ and Wits. And these are typically female mentors so that students could see role models in their engagements. The students receive guidance from their mentor. In addition to that, they receive emotional, physical well-being advice. They get access to career assessments to help them make informed decisions about career choices when entering into science. We also ensure that students see role models in terms of getting assistance from, career psychologists. And we try to get in as many speakers as possible to communicate with the students through online activities that we organize. So this is a hybrid program. It's physical at the university that it's being hosted at, as well as an online program where students are sponsored data to join. I won't spend too much more time talking about STEM MentHER because I feel that I need to tell you a lot more about the next program. But in essence, I'd like to welcome anyone who has feedback on how this program can be improved to help support students stay in the pipeline and enter STEM careers, as well as anyone who may know of industry partners or anyone that wants to help contribute to the program. So please reach out to me if you would like to do so. I'm now going to spend some time telling you a lot more about the Future Mathematicians Programme. The Future Mathematicians Programme is a program that is aimed at ensuring that we can communicate the fundamentals of research mathematics to a wider audience. So this is a program that is actually born out of science communication and a lot more. The ideas for this program, well, it emerged through conversations with Professor Zurab Yanalitsa, as well as with conversations that he had earlier this year at a SIMPA school that was hosted at the University of Johannesburg. So since then, we communicated about this and we decided to launch the program. It is currently in its pre-launch phase, and we're trying to set this up such that next year, in 2024, this program could effectively run across South Africa. So the idea is that we want to expose high school learners and undergraduate students to research mathematics. We want to address the fact that students get exposed to research mathematics from honors level onwards, whereas the concepts of set theory, logic, and much more could be communicated very effectively and in a relevant way to students at a much younger age. It's about ensuring that students are able to think mathematically, abstractly, are able to communicate or essentially comprehend mathematical situations, be able to build mathematical models, understand definitions, theorems, axioms, proofs, and also to be able to communicate that. So it's about encouraging mathematical dialogue, ensuring that students can communicate in an intuitive mathematical language, in mathematical structures, etc. And finally, through satisfying aim 1 and 2, and through the activities that I'm going to tell you more about, we will be able to indirectly and directly promote mathematics as a profession. So typically students in school who are good at mathematics, well, wouldn't choose or wouldn't immediately tell you, I'm going to become a mathematician or I'm going to become a statistician. Instead, one might say, I'm going to become a data scientist. I'm going to do actuarial science. And so it is that narrative that we hope to change. Now, the key distinction here is that we are not planning to help or guide students with regards to their current school syllabus. We are not teaching the current school syllabus. We are going to be ensuring that students understand, think, and communicate more mathematically when they leave that system through a meta curriculum that could be introduced at schools. So how do we do this? We shall do this by implementing the following. So we plan to implement extracurricular activities at schools. The aim is to have this run at all schools in South Africa. That is a big task. And so by starting small, it is to have a small, what we aim to do from this year onwards is to have a small footprint in all of the major geographical areas in South Africa. So in particular, there may be a school that becomes a hub for the future mathematicians, extracurricular activities that other students from neighboring schools could join. So these extracurricular activities could be run perhaps once every 2 weeks in the afternoon. And what we aim to do is to have postgraduate students go out to help us deliver and facilitate these sessions at the schools every 2 weeks. So that is targeting the high school level. Now, when it comes to talking about what are we going to do at universities? Well, universities could have specifically developed modules that could help target the aims that I've just put out. In particular, Stellenbosch University has a module called the Foundations of Abstract Mathematics that is already introduced, I believe, at the 2nd or 3rd year level, but perhaps Professor Yanalitsa could interrupt me and let me know if I've made an error there, if it's already introduced in the 1st year. So it is these types of initiatives, these types of modules that could be replicated and introduced to ensure that students are engaging in these types of mathematical thinking, working with mathematical models, structures. And I see has responded, true, not yet in the first year. So these are things that we could address through this program.
So this will be off the main curriculum at university?
Yes, this is part of the main curriculum at the university, at Stellenbosch.
What's it called?
Foundations of Abstract Mathematics.
Isn't it aspect taken care of, like in the analysis portion?
We had an analysis partially, but I think more could be done.
Okay.
So we only see a small part of the analysis.
So just for the audience,
Sorry,
yeah. So Professor Hardy was explaining that there are analysis courses, etc., that are offered at WITS, but it doesn't fully yet address what it is that we're aiming to do. And so these are the opportunities for us to develop such things, and these are the gaps that we can try to fill through the Future Mathematicians Programme. Beyond that, beyond modules, we could host workshops for students, winter schools, summer schools, and through some conversations with the CoE-MaSS yesterday, we are going to be hosting an annual winter school at WITS, as well as other nodes starting from next year, which works into the Future Mathematicians Plan. Yes, and other activities would be seminars and webinars, which could, again, involve not just one type of audience, but the high school learners together with the university undergraduate students. Now, in order to implement this, we need people. We need champions of these activities. And I guess through this seminar, that is another request, that we need you. We need you to join this initiative and help us grow it, support it, so that we can truly make an impact with the Future Mathematicians Programme. So currently, champions are people, university students, postgraduate students, mathematicians, teachers, who help develop, plan, and implement activities of the Future Mathematicians Programme. Brandon Liang is a PhD student. He is currently doing a joint PhD at Amsterdam University, a university in Amsterdam, as well as Stellenbosch. And he is piloting the extracurricular activity at Somerset College. In addition, Dr. Sophie Marquez, Prof. Yanalitza, and myself, we've been hosting the abstract algebra program for high school learners, which I had briefly mentioned earlier in the talk. We had done this in April, and we are going to be running this again in a few weeks' time in July, where again, we talk about abstraction, various mathematical structures in an accessible way for high school learners. And Dr. Vivian Visaya recently confirmed that she would like to champion activities at the University of Johannesburg. So we would like this list of people to grow so that we could have a footprint across South Africa. And so I'm appealing to everyone on the call to please share the information and to please recommend or get us in touch with people who would like to become part of the Future Mathematicians Champion family. So I was talking about that abstract algebra program. So here are the two posters, the first of which was for the April session, the second of which is for the session in June. If anybody would like us to share the information so you could share it in your networks, please do get in contact with us. In addition, we have been in touch with a school in Limpopo, and that is Marensky High School. And in collaboration with ZZ2 and NITEX, we plan to implement an advanced mathematics program and pilot this at Marensky High School. So ZZ2, if you perhaps don't know, it is a very large a supplier, major supplier of tomatoes. So when I heard ZZ2, I hadn't realized that. Yes, when I saw the logo, then I realized, no, I've been buying their tomatoes for a long time. Yes, but what has tomatoes, what has tomatoes got to do with this? Well, ZZ2 is very involved in supporting schools in the Limpopo area. They even have a primary, I believe, to high school. I may stand corrected. Primary. The aim is to send researchers who will be funded by NITEX and ZZ2 to the school and for 3-week periods. What will the researchers do there? Well, number one, you get to interact with the teachers and train the teachers to be able to deliver content. You then get to interact with the students in the extracurricular program over the 3-week period. And the third aim is to ensure that whilst there, you are able to help develop the curriculum for this advanced mathematics program that would be implemented at the school. This is not to be linked to AP Maths or any of the maths that's already available at schools. This is going to be a distinct program. And so, of course, we once again need champions who would be willing to want to go and spend some time, 3 weeks at a time at the school to help implement this initiative.
So this is not exams?
No exams. So yes, good question, Prof. So in particular, students join the program based on passion. So we're not going to be helping them with the high school curriculum, but rather this meta curriculum. And it's about mathematical exploration. The activities that students will engage with would help them develop mathematical thinking skills, communication skills, and abstraction skills. We would not use any school marks as a benchmark to see if they qualify to join the program. The only qualification would be passion for mathematics. That's the idea here. And through the implementation of this program, so currently in the pre-phase launch, we've got the abstract algebra program that's being hosted online. We've got the piloting of the extracurricular activities at Somerset. We've got the advanced mathematics program at Marensky. And we are engaging with a PhD student that's doing some work in Port Elizabeth to help her implement it at the schools that she's working at. The idea is that each year, once this program is running to its full potential, or it starts to run more effectively, the champions will select students who have engaged in mathematical exploration and have made progress throughout the year. And these students were invited to attend a special session at the annual SAMS Congress to present their little mini project that they have engaged in, as well as to interact and get inspired by mathematicians at the Congress. So the idea is that we will table this at the AGM of SAMS at the end of the year, at the SAMS Congress, for formal adoption of this program by SAMS. There's a lot more, and I'm sure there's going to be engagement via questions for me to tell you more about the program. But if we do run out of time during the discussion, then please do get in touch with Professor Yanaletsa or myself, as well as do look at the website that we have created, which is futuremath.net. We really are appealing to you to consider, what could I say, including your efforts in helping roll out this program in South Africa. It has potential to do a lot more and to be replicated at other countries. Thank you.
Firstly, we'll take questions from the distant audience, either through chat or are there any questions from the Zoom participants? So I see there's a question. Peter.
Well, I was going to ask, but I think you mentioned it, which is the when you try to adjust the language to the audience, you often have to lose something.
Yes.
And I don't know how to fix this. So because you start misconveying the facts, and then you're not going to get the whole story.
That is true. But I think maybe what one needs to consider is the aim. What is your aim by the end of that talk? Perhaps it's conveying the intuition behind what you're doing. And I think that if you want to convey the intuition, then you're going to have to, again, have a bit of a payoff, or maybe that was the wrong word, but you're going to have to lose something, but then again, be mindful, which is why I said, yeah, what did I say? I think I used a nice word.
So yeah, I often do it, which is possibly the wrong way to say. I start off by saying, okay, from this point on, I'm lying to you.
Okay.
And this is what I'm saying, that it's all.
It's a disclosure at the beginning. Okay. Yes. So the oversimplification is something to
Yeah.
avoid.
So,
Yeah.
so that will be the problem, right?
Yeah.
When you're trying to deliver something at a certain level, you don't want to go beyond there, and then suddenly it makes it look almost worthless, or it's like, so what's the big deal about it? So it's a hell of a balance to strike.
I think what needs to be done is to show them how it's applicable in their lives. So maybe there's a pure mathematical tool that was used in the development of the internet, and this technology that they are using every day is only made possible because of this mathematical theorem that was proved many years ago. And so that's the stance that I take when I'm interacting with the younger audience that's still learning and, you know, may not even have encountered theorem and proof yet. But here I am telling them, okay, you know, this can only be done because of this. Yeah.
Right?
I just have a comment, 2 comments, sorry, and a question.
ZZ2.
ZZ2 primary school does exist.
It does. Oh,
I
you Googled it. Yeah.
It's in
Yeah.
my book.
Yeah.
The other comment was very interesting for me, how much resonates in terms of when you study to be a teacher, particularly a language teacher. There's a lot of crossover between language concepts, English language in particular, and the mathematics that you've been talking about. I'm not going to talk too much about what those are. But within language teaching methodology, within the actual teaching methodology, one of the most effective ways of teaching, essentially of learning how to teach, is communicative teaching. And particularly this page, the setup and the way that you're going about it is incredibly true to that. And just to jump off Prof's comments about you saying like I lose something, it is within that, and it does fall within the methodology. But I think there's also a lot to be said for scaffolding. So kind of working with them, this is maybe advice for the champions and stuff like that, is just working with the learners and the students, and you kind of build a scaffold under them. So the idea is that if you do this, you know that you need to come back and do this later.
Yeah.
But my question, I'll ask one, I've got a couple, but I'll ask one and then I'll see if anyone else has got one. Exactly how, say it's not a person who wants to get involved, say it's an organization. How would they get partnered with you, and what does that partnership involve?
Okay. So I'm not sure if everybody's heard Diane's question online. Would they have heard it, Diane?
I think so.
Okay. Okay. So how to partner? Well, right. So
and what does it involve?
Right. So I think the first step is to get into contact with Professor Janelitsa or myself and indicate your interest, and also indicate possibly how you think your skills could be utilized, or what skills do you think you have available, or time-wise, what would you like to do? Well, in particular, we do require champions, someone who could help implement or facilitate activities at various universities. We also require champions who could go to a school close by, or postgraduate students who would go to a school close by to deliver the content. We require industry partners who could assist with funding some of the activities to help remunerate postgraduate students for the time, their travel to go out to schools to deliver content. We require people for consultative processes to discuss what are the concepts or activities that need to be hosted in this extracurricular activities, to discuss what should be done during the workshops or winter schools, summer schools that need to be hosted at universities.
So does the Olympiad, in a sense, wouldn't that be a good place to look for people, to look for participants?
Sure, could be a place to look for participants. It may be that students doing Olympiad may not want to do this.
Yeah.
But also we have the distinction that this is not about Olympiad
Yeah.
training.
It mustn't be.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's like, you'd think that if they're in that, then they would perhaps have an interest in this.
Yes, definitely. So that is a place to look for students to get involved.
Yeah, I mean, the concept is completely different from Olympiad.
Yeah.
Because the chances are the Olympiad students might be wanting to do a career in medicine and engineering.
Yes,
things
true.
like
That
that.
could
Whereas-
happen. Yeah.
Whereas here you're looking at specifically mathematicians or future mathematicians.
But also this program is not just about creating or training students to pursue academic careers in mathematics. It's also about ensuring that the students are better equipped when they complete their degrees, even if they decide, I'm going to be a mathematician in industry, I'm going to work at the bank. It's also about that. It's about ensuring that our public in general, when students decide what it is that they want to do, have improved skills than they would have had previously if this program was not implemented.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to make a comment or maybe give a different suggestion about the answer about the question earlier asked in terms of how one can partner. I think what also should be said here is that those who are going to be implementing this program will themselves need to learn how to speak the language that Cerene was talking about. With that abstract algebra online sessions that Cerene organized, so the first lecture was given by Cerene and Sophie, and I was listening to that lecture together with my daughter. And I had no previous discussion with them about what they would talk about. I had no idea what they would talk about. And what I found quite remarkable was that the way they approached that session and the things they said there was very similar to my own methodology that has developed through as a consequence of several years of interacting with students in the Foundations of Abstract Mathematics courses. And I was very happy to see that kind of synergy. But it does take a while to yourself learn, speak the same language that you know, but now in a different way to cater for a wider audience. And so, as part of the program, we will need to have workshops where we will try to learn this language. In fact, we're going to have one next week. Charles Masipa from TUT is visiting me, as well as a PhD student who is working in mathematics education. We will sit together and brainstorm certain mathematical topics that could be delivered under the Future Mathematicians Programme. So one way entities could partner is maybe to host research workshops. By research, I mean researching, explaining certain topics in a certain language. It could also lead to an actual mathematical research. I mean, a lot of my some of my research topics have arisen from interacting with undergraduate students. So when you try to explain something in a different language, sometimes it also gives a different perspective to what you're doing, and it might lead to new original questions that could be researched at the mathematical level. So thanks. Sorry, it was long, but that's all I would say.
Okay, thank you. We did miss the last few seconds because our internet connection was unstable. But we've got.
I just said, I just said that it could also lead to actual research questions in mathematics, such as exploration.
Yes.
I suppose sometimes you could even have, a specialist, maybe workshop conference where you include,
Yes. This.
a half a day or a day of this particular program, so that there's a balance.
That's true.
We're talking about methodologies in terms of how to present this, how to teach it, how to develop the resources. I wouldn't. What's the word? I wouldn't count out. I wouldn't dismiss the idea of talking to people who've got experience in building education.
Yes, we need educational specialists.
And they might not be mathematicians.
Yes.
But they might have been involved in kind of teacher education for years, you know, and I mean, yes, I'm pointing at myself right now, but there's a lot of me's out there. And just because they don't fall into the mathematical or statistical sciences doesn't mean that they can't contribute.
Agreed.
If someone wants to take part as a mentor or as a champion, how would they need specific qualifications? Like how would they, obviously they'd get in contact with you or Zora, but do they need, what specifics do they?
Okay, before I answer that, there was also a question from Professor Jordan, but I see Prof. Yanalitsa has responded. So this is with respect to recordings of the abstract algebra sessions. They are available on the NITEX YouTube channel, and we will record the upcoming sessions that's hosted in July that will again appear on the NITEX channel. Now to Diane's question about background knowledge, qualifications of, yes.
As a mentor or a champion.
Right. So for champions, it needs to be someone who's undergone mathematical training. So we include postgraduate students. In addition, before someone becomes a champion, we have decided that they would have to deliver an abstract algebra session online. So that could be part of the training. Champions will also be trained by champions who are already in the program so that they are aware of the skills, the language, etc. And they understand the true goals that we hope to achieve in these sessions. So in a sense, yes, there is a sort of prerequisite, a sort of training. To your previous point about engaging with people outside of the mathematical sciences, that has to be done. And we are engaging with the MISA to also get math education specialists to come on board and to assist us when deciding what are some of the activities that we should implement and how does one go about explaining such a thing? What type of engagement is required? Yeah. Yes.
You don't mind, you had the proposal to have integrated sort of the abstract mathematics modules in the university program. Is there some way that so is it supposed to be coordinated somehow, or is it each university develops their own idea of how it should be implemented? What are you thinking?
So not yet. We haven't yet engaged on that level, but we're using Stellenbosch as a pilot, in a sense. And I think perhaps at the end of the year, through engagement with SAMS, with the larger community, and maybe even at the SAMS Congress, this conversations can be initiated. But that's definitely something that, that has to be discussed.
Depends what takes on, how it gets taken on. After a major meeting. Just suppose the earliest would be sent.
Yes.
There is no earlier.
So that's why it really is pre-phase. We've got the 6 months and we're really trying to ensure that we get people on board.
Like I know a lot of our a lot of the postgrads and the postdocs who we fund are attending the seminar today. Hi everyone, it's Diane. And I think, again, sorry, Cerene, it's not really a question. I'm speaking sort of directly to those postgrads and postdocs in the audience to encourage you to view this as an opportunity in a clinical sense. You know, each of our awardees needs to complete some form of science engagement activity.
Oh, these are perfect.
As part of their contract.
Okay.
Just thinking of in mind. And this, what a brilliant opportunity to do it. But I also know of many of them who are actually looking for something like this to do, because it's hard just to contact a school and go, okay, I'll come talk to some kids. Like, this is a very structured way
to do so.
A far more structured way of doing this. Yeah. And I will send out your details to them, etc.
Thank you.
But I see Kirsten's raising her hand.
Kirsten, you have a question?
Hi, yeah, I moved. It's more comment than a question.
Okay.
What Cerene is talking about, the science engagement and communication of our science, it's actually a very, very valuable thing to do for yourself, to look at what you're doing in terms of your research and how you can explain it at that kind of level. So, I mean, it's not just that you're reaching out and helping them in their program, but as a researcher, if one can get involved in this kind of thing, it has a positive outcome, I think, for oneself as well, in terms of how you think about what you do and trying to evaluate what you do. So my experience was quite a number of years ago. My husband, who didn't like mathematics at school, but was very into economics and things like that, asked me once, well, what's the value of what I do? What's the economic value? And it made me think a lot about I trying to find a way to try and explain to him what I do. And in the process, it was unfortunately not 100% successful, because he'd been out of school for so long that even the concept of a parabola or something like that was already a bit vague. So if you're talking to a school learner, at least they have those concepts that you can work with. So I gave up at the time because I was not that successful with my husband, but I might try again now. For school learners, I'll manage it better. But so I'm going to start by looking at what Cerene's been doing together with Sophie, and then give some more thought to this. Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
That's from my side.
Thank you, Prof. So that abstract algebra sessions, I mentioned it was Sophie and myself. The second session was actually Professor Jana Litzer and Sophie. And then in the upcoming one, we are also going to be including Brandon Lang, who I had shown you on the earlier slides. But I also just wanted to add my personal experience when I was evaluating what was I doing in my career. Well, I felt that research was a very inward thing, especially since I was an early career academic and I hadn't yet established many research networks or collaborations at that point. So I felt that what I was doing was I was basically in a bubble, and I wasn't effectively communicating that or helping society with the work that I do. And so one of the reasons why I'm very active in community engagement is because I want to strike that balance. The research part is perhaps not going to help society immediately, maybe in 100 to 200 years' time. Something that's proven might become applicable in some technology. So my kind of like payoff, balancing the scales, is to do the research and then to have these initiatives run so that I can see, here is my direct impact with society now. And yes, to touch on effectively communicating your science, your mathematics to society, that is also a very important skill that we need to develop. Yeah.
I think, anyway, that's a good point to stop. Thank you, Serene, for once again availing yourself for sharing ideas and so on. It's a good program, and we hope it gets taken off. So,
thank you.
Yeah, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. Thank you. So I'll thank all the other participants. Thank you for attending. Despite the cold weather and etc. And I think the biggest problem is this time of the year. One tends to slow down, and it's going to be the winter vacation and so on. But thanks for availing yourself.
You're not seen in the.
I can hear me.
Yeah,
Okay.
but they couldn't see.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so I'll take this opportunity to thank all the participants for participating, and thank you, Serene.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.